Hey everybody, I'm just looking and let's see. Just looking to see if I can see my comments. If not, I'm gonna have to open up a different. Hey Elizabeth, thank you for posting so now I can see my comments. I hope everybody's doing good on this nice hot Saturday here in Pennsylvania. I decided to start a series and in creating either junk journals or photo albums because not everybody is a card maker. And albums or places to put your, whether for photos or for memories, as a gift to keep for yourself, I think it's something that we all, hey Patty, would enjoy creating. And this is the little album we're going to be creating. And it's actually 6.5 inches by 4.5 inches. And I actually use chipboard. And the chipboard I'm using is about 1/16 of an inch thick. If you do not have chipboard, yes, it is 1/16 of an inch. If you don't have chipboard, you can always use cereal boxes and actually glue two panels together. So you would cut your two pieces and glue them together, and that would give you a sturdy enough base for your albums. Now what I'm going to do today is create this part of the album. It has 3 hinges, so it will contain 6 pages. This is where our pages will be connected, and this is called an accordion binding or hinge. And then the back. We'll leave the decorating till the end. So today we'll do the cover, the spine, the hinge, and the back. And then next week we'll create the pages that will go inside this book. And then our last series we will end up, excuse me, decorating. So what we're going to need is 2 pieces of chipboard, cardboard, foam board, 6.5 by 4.5. The spine of our binder is 6.5 by 1.25. For this album, I'm going to cover it in Blushing Bride, and this is actually 8.5 by 12. Now for the hinge part, or the inside, this will be the spine. The piece that I'm going to be covering it with is 6 3/8 by 1 1/8. And then we have to create our hinge, and our hinge is 5.5 by 6. And then I want to decorate the inside covers, and these will be 6 3/8 by 4 3/8. But we will need to, just so you'll have an edge around, we will need to trim these in the end just a little bit. I'm also using, instead of glue, hey Do, how are you? Hi Julie. Instead of using glue, I have in the past had a hard time using glue. It seems to dry too quickly. It doesn't adhere that well. It makes your cardstock soggy. So I actually have Terran tape, and this is not from Stampin' Up, and it's actually 1" in width. And then I do have Stampin' Up's Terran tape for those little areas, and this is 1/4 inch. Now you can use adhesive sheets if you'd like. Now the cover of this and this whole piece, I did use the Terran tape, and you'll notice that everything is stuck really well. There are no folds, there's no bubbles, so I really do like the Terran tape or the adhesive sheets. So just a little bit of, just a little hint of maybe what you should do. So we're going to take our base layer, and this is what we're going to cover our album in. I actually marked it on each side at 3/4 inch because I think once I lay these in, I'm a little crazy when it comes to having my edges pretty well even. This is how it's going to look. Before we put the Terran tape on, you're going to lay your pieces out, but you need to actually have a space, and bear with me for a minute, here it is. You have to have a space between your front cover and your spine, and your back cover and your spine. So because the paper is very stiff, and if you were up against each other, when it came time for this to close, you would have no paper to stretch. If you notice, that's why I had the rubber band around this binder, because you want to teach these corners and the paper to stretch into place. So now with the rubber band off, at least the book is closed. It doesn't flap open. You want to teach all the fibers in this paper. So you need a space. And where this is 1/16 inch, you want about double. So I doubled up on my chipboard, and I'm going to use this as my shim when I'm ready to lay everything down. So you'll have just that 1/16 inch in between each one. So let's get started. We're going to cover this, and I'm actually going to use an old gift card as my ruler. And I'm using the 1" Terran tape. And I'm just going to cover this up. And I'm going to start on one end, and then I'm going to put it down on the other end. And I know this is going to, after a while, it's going to be really tedious. But I wanted to do everything step by step with everybody. So for those that have never created before, you won't get lost in the process. You'll see exactly how the book is created from beginning to end. Okay, so there's piece number 1. This one I'm actually going to use the smaller. So let's jump to the other. And we're going to do the same exact thing. We're just going to lay this out. You want to create a nice surface that the paper is going to adhere to. Just going to... And like I said, this doesn't, using this, you won't have any of the adhesive bubbles that I like to call them. You want to make sure it is stuck really nice to your chipboard. Oh yeah, chipboard's not that expensive, or do. And then we're going to do the same thing to the spine. And I guess I could use the 1 inch, but the reason I'm not is because I really do want this right at the edge of this piece, so that paper adheres really well to each end of the spine. And then we're just going to put one right in the center. Okay, so now that we have all our adhesive on, just want to get going to put my ruler. It's 12 inches. I know, I get a little crazy. I'm going to put the spine on first. Then this way I know where the center of my cardstock is, and then work out. Okay. So I want to just eyeball that I have about the same amount of cardstock on the top and on the bottom. And I want this to be in here pretty straight. So once you have that adhered, just turn it over, take your bone folder, and make sure that that cardstock is adhered really well. Okay, so now we can put on one of our sides. Again, you're going to take off your tear and tape, the paper. You're going to have lots of tear and tape paper around. Hey Sonia, how are you, honey? Now, if you didn't want to cover the chipboard, it is possible to paint it or dye it, but know that it does warp and it goes out of shape. So this is the easiest way to do it. So now I'm going to take my shim. We're going to lay it up against the spine, and when you lay this down, you want your edges to be equal. So we're going to use this shim. I'm just going to set it there so my spine and the sides are even. And then we're going to lay that down. So now we have a nice opening there, and it'll take up the space when we need to close this book. And it's exactly 3/4 of an inch from the end, so that's pretty good. So we're going to just turn it around, and again, just make sure that's adhered really well. And we're going to do the same thing to this side. I mean, I know this project is a lot of work, but it, like I said, it would keep your foot. You can use photos. Our pages will contain pockets and areas that you can attach photos. I think the pages will be the best part of creating this, because they're pretty neat, and we'll do that next week. Okay, so I'm going to grab that shim again, put it right up against that spine, line it up, and push it against that spine. Make sure that it is, oops, just want to put this in here this way. Line it up, make sure it's straight, and adhere that down. Okay, so now we have our cover, our back, and our spine. Now we want to cover this. So what we're going to do is, to make the corners easier, we're going to take our scissors. See what I did with them? My adhesive scissors. Here they are. And we're just going to cut these corners off. Now I want you to make sure, I know when I did the corners for this book, and you can't really tell because I filled it in, the paper came up just a tad short. So I'll show you how to fix that if it happens. But we're going to diagonally cut these corners off to make it easier to cover the binder. Because you'll see how the paper doesn't look even here. So that we may run into a problem when it comes to covering the inside of this book. But we're going to keep these corners just in case. Just put them aside. And then we're going to add our tearing tape. I'm going to use the wide one for this side. And then for the other ones, we'll use the thinner tape. And you just want to make sure you have it adhere this really well. Now it will be covered with the Designer Series paper. Again, you can create your binder any color you want. I'm actually using retired paper that I have. So we're just adding our tearing tape so we can move this way. Adhere this down. So how's the weather by everybody? It is pretty warm here today. Really humid. I think we're supposed to get rain. Let's cut this one. Oops. Move it over a little bit. Okay. So now we have all our sides. Make sure this is down really well. And now we're going to cover. And what you're going to do is, the best way to do it before you take your tape off is just stand it up on its edge, just like this, and flip it over. And once it's flipped over, just hold it, take your bone folder, and give that a good crease against the edge. And you'll have a nice, smooth edge. Once you do that, remove your paper. Now you've told the fibers and the paper what you're going to do with it. So it makes it a little easier for that to fold over. You can see you don't struggle as much. And then get that over and seal that closed. Okay, then we're going to do this side. We're going to do the same exact thing. Just lift it up on its edge, flip it completely over, hold on to it, grab your bone folder, and then just go over that edge. Gives it a nice clean finish to the edge. Now hopefully when we flip the other two over, we don't have too much space left over. Where our paper is only 12 inches, I could have cut it at 6 and then added a piece just to extend the ends a little bit, but I just didn't want so many folds. I wanted it to be nice and clean. Okay, so now that we have that one, just going to do the same thing. Get that stuck. Okay, now let's do this side. Just lift and turn. And you're just going to fold it right over. That side worked out pretty well. And then we're going to turn it. We're going to do the same thing to this side. Now that I have it, just, can you see that cover? You see no air bubbles. It's nice and smooth. It works out really well with the tear and tape. Okay, last side. Look at that, it actually worked out perfectly. Okay, so now that we have everything covered, I'm happy that we didn't need these corners, so we'll get rid of them. We are going to now take this middle piece. Let me just get everything out of the way. Our spine piece. Now I could have done this the same color as the Designer Series paper. As you can see, the leaves, that's this piece right here. But on this one, I decided to leave it in pink. So I'm just going to add my tear and tape. Let me grab my gift card ruler here. Just going to trim this straight. This is just to cover the chipboard. The hinge will be going in the center. But this just designates that center as your spine. It'll be completely covered except for the top and the bottom. And we're just going to adhere this right into the center. See how it's long. Okay, just like that. Okay, so now that you have this part done, we're just going to put that aside for a minute, and we're going to work on the hinge. Just grab my piece of cardstock. Now, as I said, your hinge is 5.5 by 6.5. Grab my excuse me, scoreboard. See what I did with my stylus. Let's see. It doesn't clip in anymore, so I'm forever losing this crazy thing. Well, that's not good. I guess I should have looked to see where it was. It's here somewhere, probably right in front of me, and I don't, yep, here it is, right here in front of me. Okay. See, it doesn't clip in anymore, so what you're going to do is, on your scoreboard, sorry about that, with the long side up at the top. We're going to score this piece. Now this is our accordion hinge, and we're going to score it at 1 inch, 1.5, 2. So we're doing every 1/2 inch. 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, and 5. So you'll have 1 inch on each side. I'm going to put the scoreboard away. Now this is going to be folded like an accordion, but before we do that, we're going to flip it over, and we're going to grab our tearing tape again, and we are going to adhere the tearing tape to the 3rd section, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to add that tearing tape right by the 3rd score line. And we're doing that because once this folds, there's my little credit card cutter. Once this folds, this tearing tape is going to hold those hinges together when it's folded together. So we have the binding in the center, so we can add our pages. So that's 3. Then we're going to hook it to number 6, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to add our tape to section 6. And then we are going to 7, 8, add it to section 9. Now what happens is, I'll grab this book, you'll see that here's our hinge. So there's tearing tape between these 2 sections, and then there's a nice open space, and that open space, even within the front, is you can fill your pages with and load your book in the center. Hold on 1 second. Hey Kathy, I'm not paying attention here. Pouring rain. Yeah, that's what it is. I see the comments. I'm really sorry. I'm just oblivious here. So I'll go back after everything's done and go through the comments. I just got so involved, I forgot to look at my comments. I'm sorry. That's what happens sometimes. But like I said, the tearing tape is between these 2 sections, and then you have a nice gap where when you fill your pages, your covers won't bulge. And then the tearing tape is between these 2 sections, and then you have a nice opening, and then there's tearing tape to hold this one together. So that is your accordion. So now that we have our tearing tape, let's create these page holders. So we want to fold it right here on score line number 2. So you're going to give that a good score. This piece here, you're going to fold up. Reason being, you want your page tabs to be on one side, and you need to adhere this to the binding of your book. Okay? So we'll just make these lines nice and crisp. Now, you want to have this opening. The chipboard that I'm using is 1/16 of an inch. My shim, I use 2 pieces of the chipboard, so it creates a 1/8 of an inch shim between the pieces. If you don't have chipboard, if you cut up a cereal box and double the layers of your cereal box, so for your cover and back, instead of cutting 2, cut 4 and glue them together, that would be heavy enough if you didn't want to go out and spend money on chipboard. Okay, so here is our hinge for 1 page. Now we know we need a space in between, so let's fold that score line, and then we need to create our hinge. So we'll pull this paper off, and we're going to fold it down, because here's our space. We're going to fold it into this area right here. So just fold it over, burnish it really well. We're going to fold this down because we want this page holder to be its own. So now we have our 2 holders for our pages. This section is going to be where we can fill our pages. So we want to fold this, and there's our tear and tape. Okay, let's take that tear and tape off. And we want to fold this down over that tear and tape. Give it a nice good crease. And then here's that edge piece. We can just fold that like that. And there's the accordion hinge. So this is going to be inside your book, and this is where we're going to attach our pages. So let's turn it over. Now we have 4 nice sections of this hinge. So what are we going to do? We are going to grab our tear and tape. You know what it is? My comments aren't scrolling up. They're just staying buried. And we're going to add our tear and tape. I'm going to put one right at the edge. This is this section here. So I'm going to do one on each side. Do the sides first, and then I do have room to add another layer in the center. We want to make sure that this hinge stays attached to the inside of the binder, and then we're going to add a piece of tear and tape to these 2 sections here. And if you wanted, I could have used the 1 inch and just did 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go close to this fold here. Now I'm using, colorful pages. I have seen the binders base done in black, and it really looks beautiful. I would have chosen black, but I don't have any 12 by 12 black sheets, so I'll be going shopping. Okay, so now we have all our tear and tape on the hinge of our binder. So we're going to grab our binder. This is going to go right in the center of our book. Now what you want to do is, before you take off your tape, I'm going to put it this way so I can see. You want to make sure that there's the same space from the edge to the edge of your hinge. Okay? And then when you look this way, Each hinge is just about to the edge of this paper binding with a breath hair, just a teeny little breath of space, okay? So that's what you want to do. You want to line everything up so the hinges are straight. You have the same space, top and bottom. And it is centered on the inside of your book. If you wanted to, you could take your ruler and mark the center of the book if you wanted to do that. But I'm just going to eyeball it and hope and wish for the best. So we're just going to take off our tearing tape. I'm glad I have adhesives coming, which reminds me, if you're interested in creating one of these books and you're low on adhesives, right now at the top of the page I have a 40% off sale going on for all adhesives. It's exclusive through me. It is not a Stampin' Up! Sale. There's a form to fill out. You can buy as many adhesives as you like. I will be sending out the invoices on June 28th, and you can get any of the adhesives that are listed on my blog post for 40% off. Tearing tape is on the list, so keep that in mind if you'd like to stock up on your adhesives. I'm just going to make sure that center is standing up because I want to get that centered into the middle of the page before I put this down. You know, tearing tape is not that nice. It doesn't give you any space to make a mistake. So I just want to make sure it's on there straight. And I think that looks good. So I'm just going to burnish that down. Then I'm going to jump to that in-between section and stick that down. And the next section, this way I'll have no bubbles, no creases, and then we'll do this end piece. And then just go back over and make sure it's really stuck. Okay, so there are our hinge. That's our hinge. Nice and easy. Now for the inside, again, I'm using paper that is retired. And it is a little bit too long. So I'm just going to look here. It looks like it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7/16. So I am going to cut it, let's do 6 1/4. So give me 1 second to just trim this a little bit. Okay, so I cut it down to 6 1/4. And that looks pretty good. But before we do that, this section, for the glue order, it just is for adhesives, not the embellishments. It's tearing tape. If you go to the blog post, Karen, and yes, I will take a check. So before we, put the inside in, we want to get this to fold. As you can see, it's very, very stiff right now. So I want you to take your bone folder and find where that opening is. You can lift it up a little and you'll be able to feel it. And I want you to take your bone folder and don't press very hard, but I want you to just keep going up and down that spine very carefully. You want to move those fibers of the paper, and then as you get a little bit more of a crease, you can lift up that front corner, and you want to do it gentle because the paper does have a tendency to rip. Now actually that worked out really well. That folded nicely. Turn it onto the other side, find out where it is, and then again just start moving those paper fibers. You don't want to push too hard and poke a hole, but you want to get this book so this binding and your covers stay closed. This is, if you see, the fibers don't know what you really want it to do. So you want to gently close it up, go back and crease that binding. You might have to go back to your other side, but very easily work those fibers and just do it gently because you do not want this to split. Okay, you just want to work those fibers. Now I do have a rubber band on hand, but we're going to go back to the inside. I'm actually going to use my Stampin' Seal, and I am going to add Stampin' Seal around the edge of these pieces all the way around. And in the center, I want to make sure that this really sticks. And then we're just going to add this, making sure that it is even and straight. And stick it down. Now when it comes to time for decorating, I will be adding a pocket to the front and the back. So there's that side. Let's grab the other one. And I'm going to turn it this way so I can make sure I try to at least get it even. Today hasn't been too bad with me cutting straight lines. But you never know. It could end up bad, right? Alright, that's a little bit off. Let me just scooch that up a little bit. Okay, I think that's good. Okay, so there's the inside of our binder. Just make sure that your paper is sticking really well. Thanks, Pam. Yeah, the paper is pretty, isn't it, Em? I think it's going to be for somebody special who's coming around in November. Okay, so now that the book and the binding and the hinge and the cover is done, we're just going to close this up, and I am going to put the rubber band around it because I want these fibers to stretch. I think when we get ready to embellish and decorate the front, I think I am going to put a binding on of another layer of paper before I do the front, just to give it a little bit more pizzazz. And there you go. Now this book, you see, I need to get another rubber band. So this one, it's still not ready. So I'm going to leave this until next week. Now, if you'd like to join me next Saturday, we are going to be doing the pages. Now, for this pink book, I'm going to use pink pages. For my blue book, I'm going to use blue pages. That's how I'm doing it. You can, thanks Elizabeth. Hey Maggie, that's fine, no problem. Thanks Nathan. So we'll be doing the pages next week. And if you want to cut and get ready your cardstock for then, you're going to need 3 pieces of 8 by 12 cardstock for the book. Okay? So that's 8 by 12, 3 individual pieces, and that's going to give us 6 pages for the inside of our book. And that is what we're going to do. So thanks everybody for joining. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comments. I'll go back and look at the comments. This way I can answer them for you, and I'll see you next week. And again, if you want to stock up on your adhesive, check out. That's okay, Pam. I was wondering, I'm thinking picture. What picture? I was going to go back and see if you had written as a question up top somewhere. You are so welcome, Debbie. I'm so happy everybody was able to join today. Like I said, next week, 3 pieces, 8 by 12 inches long. And that's what we'll be working on. So have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to everybody soon. Thanks, Kathleen. Bye-bye.